Hey guys, welcome back. If you're reading The Wild Robot along with me, we're going to read some more today. Remember, this one I've been reading for about 15 minutes a day, and that's usually quite a few chapters because the chapters are really short. So we're starting with chapter 18 called The Camouflaged Robot. As you know, reader, Roz had always liked to keep herself as clean as possible, but her desire to stay alive was stronger than her desire to stay clean, and our robot decided it was time she got dirty. Roz was going to camouflage herself. And there she is. She looks like a tree. She had gotten the idea from the stick insect, but Roz quickly realized that camouflaging herself as a twig was out of the question. No, the robot would have to blend into the landscape itself. She began by smearing handfuls of thick mud over her entire body, and then she plunked ferns and grasses from the ground, and she sank their roots into her muddy coating. She placed colorful flowers around her face to disguise her glowing eyes, and bare patches were covered with tree leaves and strips of moss. Our robot now looked like a giant tuft of plants walking through the forest. She waited for darkness, and then she padded to the center of a clearing. She nestled herself between some rocks and became a part of the landscape. A few hours later, the sky was brightening, the fog was lifting, the nighttime animals were slinking home, and the daytime animals were beginning to stir. It was just an ordinary morning on the island. However, there was a new tuft of plants. In that one forest clearing, only the bees had noticed the tuft. They buzzed around it, completely unaware that the robot was hidden beneath, and so Roz sat there, right in the open, yet completely unseen, and observed the wilderness around her. She watched flowers slowly turn towards the sun. She listened to rodents crawl through the weeds. She smelled the moist, piney air. She felt worms wiggle against her muddy sides. A week later, the tuft of plants was gone, but there was a new clump of seaweed on the shore. A week after that, the clump of seaweed was gone, but there was a new bramble on the mountain. And then there was a new log on the riverbank, and then a new rock in the forest. So she's disguising herself as many different things so she can look at different places. Chapter 19 is called The Observations. Clouds scuttled through the sky. Spiders spun intricate webs. Berries beckoned to hungry mouths. Foxes stalked hares. Mushrooms rose up from a leaf litter. Turtles plopped into ponds. Moss spread across tree roots. Vultures hunched over carcasses. Ocean waves beat against the coastline. Tadpoles became frogs. Caterpillars became butterflies. A camouflaged robot observed it all. Okay, chapter 20 is called The Language of the Animals. It started with the birds. They had always been skittish when the robot was near. They would stare and screech and then scatter. But now that Roz was camouflaged, she could secretly observe their normal behavior right up close. Roz noticed chickadees fluttering through the same flowers and singing the same song every morning. She noticed a lark who swooped down to the same rock and sang the same song every afternoon. She noticed the same two magpies singing to each other from across the same meadow every evening. After weeks of robotically studying the birds, Roz knew what each bird would sing and when they would sing, and eventually why they would sing. The robot was beginning to understand the birds, but she was also beginning to understand the porcupines and the salamanders and the beetles. She discovered that all of the different animals shared one common language. They just spoke the language in different ways. You might say each species spoke with its own unique accent. When Roz first listened to the chickadees sing their songs, it had sounded like tweet, tweedle, tweet, tweedle. But now when the chickadees sang, Roz heard, "Oh, what a lovely day it is. Oh, what a lovely day it is." So she's figuring out their language. Deer spoke mostly with their bodies. By simply turning a head, a doe could say to her family, "Let's look for clovers by the stream." Snakes often hissed to themselves things like, "I know there's a tasty mouse around here somewhere." Bees said very little. They used their wings to buzz a few simple words like nectar and sun and hive. Frogs spent much of their time searching for each other. One would croak, "Where are you? I can't see you." And then another would reply, "I'm over here. Follow my voice." When Roz first stomped across the island, the animal squawks and growls and chirps had sounded like nothing more than meaningless noises. But she no longer heard animal noises. Now she heard animal words. Chapter 21 is called The Introduction. There was an hour each morning in the dim light of dawn when all of the island animals were safe. You see, long ago they had agreed not to hunt or harm one another during that hour, and they called it the Dawn Truce. Most mornings, the island residents would gather in the meadow and spend the hour chatting with friends. Of course, not everyone attended these gatherings. The bears had never made an appearance, and the vultures just circled high above. But on this particular morning, an unusually large group of animals had come out to discuss some important news. "Settle down, everyone. I have something to say." Swooper, the owl, hooted to the crowd from the lowest branch of a dead tree. "Last night, I saw a mysterious creature right here in the meadow. It seemed to be covered in grass, so I couldn't get a good look at it, but I think it may have been the monster." Looks of concern swept across the crowd. "What was the creature doing?" said Dart the weasel. "It was speaking," said Swooper. "It kept repeating the same words over and over again, but each time it sounded a little different. At first, it sounded like a cricket, and then it sounded like a raccoon, and then it sounded like an owl." "What was it saying?" said Dig Down the groundhog. "I could be mistaken," said Swooper, "but I think it was saying, 'Hello, my name is Roz.'" The crowd began to chatter. "Just where was this creature?" said Fink the fox. Everyone turned as the owl slowly pointed his wing to a grassy lump in the meadow. It was a rather ordinary-looking grassy lump until it began to move. As you probably guessed, that grassy lump was Roz. She had been there the whole time, camouflaged, watching, listening, and with all of the animals looking at her, she decided to introduce herself. The crowd stared in disbelief at the grassy lump as it started shaking its head and bulging upward and crumbling apart, and there was the robot. Then, using her body and voice, the robot spoke to the animals in their own language. "Hello, my name is Roz." The crowd gasped. Swooper fluttered up from his branch and screeched, "It's the monster!" "I am not a monster," said Roz. "I am a robot." A flock of sparrows suddenly took off. "Leave us alone," squeaked Dart as he crouched low in the grass. "Return to whatever horrible place you have come from." "I come from here," said Roz. "I have spent my whole life on this island." "Why haven't you spoken to us sooner?" screeched the owl from higher up in the tree. "I did not know the animal language until now," said the robot. Crown Point, the buck, had heard enough. He slipped into the forest with his family. "So what do you want from us?" growled Fink. "I have observed that different animals have different ways of surviving," said the robot. "I would like each of you to teach me your survival techniques." "I'm not going to help you," screeched the owl from the very top of the tree. "You seem so unnatural." "The monster is just waiting to gobble us up," shrieked Dig Down, and the groundhog disappeared into a hole. "It will not gobble anyone up," said Roz. "I have no need for food." "You don't need food?" Finks relaxed a bit. "Well, I need food, and lots of it. Why don't you make yourself useful and find some food?" "What would you like me to do?" said Roz. "Well, can you hunt?" The fox smiled at a hare on the far side of the gathering. "It's almost time for breakfast." "I cannot hunt, but I could gather berries." The fox's smile disappeared. "Berries? I'm hungry for meat, not berries. Good luck to you, Roz. You're gonna need it." And the fox trotted away. Roz looked up at the tree, but the owl had gone, and when the robot looked down again, she realized that everyone else had gone too. This chapter is called The New Word. A new word was spreading across the island. The word was Roz. Everyone was talking about the robot, and they wanted nothing to do with her. I don't think I'll ever feel comfortable knowing that Roz is on the prowl. I hope that Roz camouflages herself as a rock forever. Shh, there's Roz now. Let's get out of here. Roz wandered the island, covered in dirt and green growing things, and everywhere she went, she heard unfriendly words. The words would have made most creatures quite sad, but as you know, robots don't feel emotions, and in these moments, that was probably for the best. Chapter 23 is called The Wounded Fox. My face, my beautiful face, somebody help. Fink the fox was lying on a log, howling in pain with a face full of long, sharp quills when Roz appeared. Isn't there anybody else who could help? Would you like me to leave? Said the robot. No, please don't go. I'll take what I can get. What happened? I didn't think that porcupine could see me in the bushes, but when I went for his throat, suddenly there were quills in my face. Why did you go for his throat? Why do you think? Because I was hungry. If you had not attacked the porcupine, you would not have quills in your face. Yes, Roz, I know that, but a fox has got to eat. I just didn't expect him to put up such a fight. And here he is, that little guy. Look, there are even quills in my paws. I can't walk. My face is numb. I could die if you don't help me. What would you like me to do? Said the robot. I would like you to pull out the quills. Roz calmly knelt down beside Fink and said, I will pull out the quills. The robot started to tug on a quill, but it snapped off in her fingers. Fink yelped and said, Oh, pinch it closer to the skin. So Roz pinched the broken quill closer to the skin, and then very slowly she pulled it out. The fox winced in pain and said through gritted teeth, Please, Roz, pull them out faster. This is agony. Roz quickly tugged out another quill, and then another and another. The fox lay perfectly still, eyes closed tightly, wind whistling through his nose until every single quill had been removed and placed in a neat pile beside him. Fink struggled to his feet. Oh, thanks, Roz. I owe you one. The fox smiled briefly, and then he limped away. All right, chapter 24. It's called The Accident. As Roz wandered through the springtime, she saw all of the different ways that animals had entered the world. She saw birds guarding their egg like treasures until the chicks finally hatched. She saw deer give birth to fawns who were up and running in a matter of minutes. Many newborns were greeted by loving families. Some were on their own from their very first breath. And as you're about to find out, a few poor goslings would never even get a chance to hatch. Roz was climbing down one of the forest cliffs when the accident happened. The wind started blowing out of the north, and suddenly clouds were rushing over the island. With the clouds came a spring shower, a downpour actually, and there was our robot clamping her hands onto a wet block of stone on the side of the cliff. But the block couldn't handle the extra weight, and as the heavy robot hung there, cracks suddenly shot through the stone and it started breaking apart. Down went the robot, plummeting into the treetops below. She crashed through branch after branch before finally hooking an arm around one. My puppy is knocking over my thing, sorry. And then she dangled there, gently swinging, as rocks roared past her on their way to the forest floor. When the dust settled, Roz shimmied down the tree trunk. The ground was littered with broken rocks and splintered wood and pulverized shrubs, and within all that rubble was a goose nest that had been torn to shreds. 2 dead geese and 4 smashed eggs lay among the carnage. The robot stared at them with her softly glowing eyes, and then something clicked. Deep inside of her computer brain, Roz realized that she had caused the deaths of an entire family of geese. We're going to stop there for today, but the next chapter is called The Egg, and you may predict what's going to happen here. Bye, guys.